All right, we're going to jump right in. And for those that join, welcome. And folks will kind of continue to join as we jump in, but I wanted to get started. So thanks to everyone to join us today. This is speaker number 4 of the 10-part Stride speaker series on leading through adversity. And I'll just reflect and say that it's fascinating that even though working from home and things are starting to open up as our new normal, every day still does kind of feel like a dog day to me. So it's amazing how long it feels since we started doing these, but I continue to be very thankful that we are sharing really like best practices that folks that we know about how to lead through uncertain times. And today is certainly a talk that I've been personally very excited to hear. So my name is Debbie Madden. I'm the founder and CEO of Stride Consulting. Briefly, we are an agile software development consultancy. So our superpower is collaborating and iterating with you to really serve as value multipliers to help you be your best by coding alongside of you, by coaching you and being technical mentors, and really helping you deliver high quality products and software. So today we've got Josh Seiden talking to us about outcomes over outputs. Josh is someone I've known for many, many years personally. He's the author of Lean UX, which is a book that many, many folks have loved for several years now. And his newer book, focusing on outcomes over outputs, which is he's going to talk to us about today. And then before I hand it over to Josh, I'll talk a little bit about what's coming up next for the speaker series and then what to do if you have a question for Josh. So we do have, like I said, 6 more speakers in the series. If you want to see who they are, you can go to stridenyc.com/events. We have some really cool ones coming up. We've got the CEO of Meetup coming up, talking about how he pivoted the whole business as a result of COVID. We've got the CEO of Code Academy, Zach Sims, talking about what he's seeing in the job market. We've got Diana Larson, we've got Esther Derby, we've got Jeff Gothelf. So really, really strong lineup coming up in the next few weeks. And then finally, if you have questions for Josh, you can ask in really kind of dealer's choice. You can ask via chat for us to unmute you. You can write your question in the chat. You can talk to Josh after this. We'll have his contact information at the end. You can also go to joshseiden.com and contact him there. So without further ado, I'm going to stop sharing my screen. And if you guys want to put your, now you see all of us here. If you want to put your view on speaker, and I'll hand it over to Josh to take it away. Thanks, Josh.
All right, terrific. Debbie, thanks so much for inviting me to talk today. It's good to be here. I'm going to take a moment and fight with Zoom and share my screen. And let's see, I'm going to put my keynote up and you should all see that. Yeah, right on. Okay, good. So as Debbie said, I'm here to talk today about using outcomes as kind of a tool to manage our work. I'm going to talk for about 20 minutes, 15, 20 minutes, tell you a couple of stories, and that'll leave us time for questions at the end, okay? Outcomes are really sort of an interesting tool that I've been thinking about a lot in the last few years. And today, I think, they're relevant because in this kind of moment of adversity, we're sort of struggling with lots of facing all kinds of new challenges, right? And so one of the questions I think that I'm thinking a lot about is how can I focus on what's really important? How can I focus on what's really essential? And how can I help my clients sort of face this moment where everybody's trying to do more with less? And so the ideas I'm going to talk about today, you can read more about them in my book, Outcomes Over Output. The link there is on the screen, and we can share that too at the end. This book really came out of my experience. I work as an independent consultant. My background is in design and product management. And so I help teams launch new products and services. I help them figure out strategy, and I help them think about kind of process, how to work together collaboratively across disciplines in a more effective and efficient way. And if you're on this call with, that's hosted by Stride, chances are you're interested in working in an agile way. And so one of those things that happens in the agile world is you hear people say this phrase, outcomes over output. We want to be more outcome centric. And it's hard to disagree with that sentiment, right? It's kind of a mom and apple pie sort of idea. But the problem with it is that it's not very specific. It doesn't offer a lot of guidance. And so a lot of times people use the word outcomes as kind of a synonym for results or goals. And what I like to do, what I've discovered in working with teams, is that it helps to have a very, very specific definition of the word outcomes. And so this is the definition that I like to use. An outcome is a measurable change in behavior that drives business results. And that word behavior is really important because it helps us focus on what people are doing, right? So what are our users doing? What are our customers doing? What are we doing? And how can we change those things to create more value for our users, for our customers, and for our business? Now, at this point, I think it usually helps to have a little story to illustrate what I mean. And so I want to tell you a story that hopefully will make this kind of snap into focus. I'd like you to imagine for a moment that you work in government in a small town, perhaps in Massachusetts, where this photo is taken. And your job is traffic safety, okay? And one day your boss comes to you and says, Josh, this is my story after all. Your boss says, Josh, there's a dangerous intersection down at the mall, and we'd like you to clean it up. And so you go down to the mall and you go to this intersection and you observe for a while. And so there's some things that you see in this, at this intersection, right? You see that there's a right turn only arrow and people are turning left. And you see that it's a T intersection and cars are supposed to stop at that T, but nobody's stopping. And so you just say, you look at this for a little while longer and you decide, I have the perfect plan. And you go back to your boss and you say, boss, here's the plan. We're going to put up street signs. We're going to put up a stop sign and a no left turn sign. It's going to take this long. It's going to cost this much money. And at the end, we'll get the intersection under control. And your boss says, Josh, you're a genius. I told you this is my story after all. And so, and he says, go ahead, right? And so you do it. And you put up the stop signs with the folks from the Department of Public Works, and you're very happy, and you high five and you go have a beer. The next day, you go back to your intersection to take a look and see what's happening. And here's what you see. Right. So no one's stopping. Everybody's turning left. It's utter chaos, right? So what's going on here? Let's talk about this language for a second. This is the framework that I write about in the book. This is the logic model framework, and I can share a link to this is developed in the nonprofit world. But in this story, your boss came to you and said, Josh, what I want is a safer street. And so what your boss is asking for is the sort of highest level result that executives tend to care about. We call that an impact, right? And so what do executives care about? They care about revenue. They care about sales. They care about customer retention, market share. These are the highest level results that they care about. But they're hard to work with because they're the result of many factors, right? You can't go to a single team and say, hey, team, make General Electric profitable, right? And so you need to break it down into smaller units. And so the problem is that most of us then go jump right to the other end of the diagram and we start thinking about what we're going to make, right? We say, well, to make a safer street, we're going to put in street signs. It's going to, we need this many people and this materials. It's going to take this long. Here's our budget. And when we're done, we'll have this output, right? We'll have a street sign, okay? And the problem is that it didn't work. Right? It didn't create the outcome that we wanted. The outcome, remember I said, was a change in behavior, right? And the change in behavior that we wanted was, we wanted people to stop making left turns. We wanted people to stop at the intersection, okay? So in our story, right, the output was the street sign, and the outcome was driver behavior. And we didn't change driver behavior with our street signs, okay? And I think there's something really important that I want to call out here, which is that there was nothing wrong with the output here, okay? We made perfect street signs. They were on time. They were on budget. They met all of the requirements. They met the acceptance criteria, right? And so we made perfect output. They just didn't work. They didn't create the change in behavior that would drive the result we care about. And I think for a lot of us in product development, that should sound like a common scenario. You know, we work all the time on these features, right? The output, and we finish them up, we ship them, we get a t-shirt, and then, you know, we don't create the business results or the user results or the customer results that we were seeking. And so you know, I think the lesson here is that that what we're trying to do is we're trying to create the most positive outcome that we can create, right? The change in behavior that creates value with the least possible output that we can make. What's the smallest change we can make to our system? The smallest system, a bit of copy change, a little bit of a policy change. What's the smallest amount of output we can make to achieve the greatest outcome that we can? And I think that's sort of the question we need to be asking ourselves in this moment when we are trying to focus on what's essential and trying to, you know, do more with less. Okay, so I want to talk about one more thing here, and then we can kind of move to the Q&A. I think with this kind of definition in mind, right, that an outcome is a measurable change in behavior that drives business results. The next question that people tend to ask is, how do I go about finding outcomes? And I would say that in the book, I write about what I call the magic questions, 3 magic questions that you can use to try to identify valuable outcomes, right? And so first question is, what are the behaviors that drive business results? Second question, how can we get people to do more of these things? And then the third question is, how do we know we're right? And I want to show you how these questions work by telling you a short story about a client that I worked with a few years ago. It's a client based in New York City called TAPROOT Foundation. TAPROOT Foundation is a nonprofit organization, and their mission is to help other nonprofits use volunteer services to complete professional projects that they need. And so they call these volunteers, they call it pro bono. And so what they're trying to do is to get, as much as lawyers donate their time for pro bono service, they want to get other professionals, skilled volunteers donating their professional time, right? So not painting walls or cleaning schools, which is important, but helping people with marketing plans or strategic planning or human resource planning. So how do they get skilled volunteers? Their mission is to get skilled volunteers helping nonprofits. And what they do is they match these volunteers who want to help with nonprofit organizations. And then they will run a 3-month or a 6-month or a 9-month consulting engagement, managing these volunteers who work for the nonprofits. I got a call from a team at TAPROOT Foundation a few years ago who said, look, we've been given a strategic mandate for the coming year. Our goal, our mandate, is to increase the Net Promoter Score of our service. And we're really not sure how to proceed. Can you help us figure out what we should do to increase Net Promoter Score? Now, if you're not familiar with Net Promoter Score, I'll avoid a long discussion of it, but it's basically a measure to try and, it's a way to try to measure whether customers will recommend your service to other customers, okay? It's basically a measure of the recommendability. There's no such word as that, but you know what I mean. All right, so they're trying to figure out, their mandate was, how do we increase, your mandate was go increase the Net Promoter Score of your service, and they were trying to figure out what to do next. And so if you come back to this logic model framework, the impact, right, that they were trying to achieve, they've been given this mandate, increase Net Promoter Score. And they were trying to figure out what they were going to do for the rest of the year, and they didn't know. And so we started with that first magic question. What are the measurable changes in customer behavior that will create this result? And to do that, to understand the behavior, we had to go step back and say, okay, well, if we're trying to change what people are doing in the system, we have to understand all of the behaviors in the system. So we did a map. We just created a map, a service journey. And we said, okay, look, let's take a look at these 3 swim lanes here. Let's take a look at these 3 swim lanes, and let's see. So swim lane 1 was what are the nonprofits doing? Swim lane 2, what are the volunteers doing? And swim lane 3 is what are we doing as we go through the process, right? And we mapped all of the behaviors in the system. And then we went back through that map and we said, what are the things that predict success? Right? The things that people do that indicate, that predict a successful result. For example, when people answer their emails quickly, the projects tend to go well. When people pick up the phone quickly, the projects tend to go well. And we asked, what are the things that predict failure? So for example, when people don't go to meetings, it predicts failure. When people don't answer their emails, it predicts failure. And we took a look at all of those things, and then we said, okay, what are the most important ones to work on? And we made a prioritized list. What are the most important success factors that we want to promote, and the most important failure factors that we want to get rid of? And from that, we were able to create a roadmap for the year, right? And this is a slightly simplified version of that roadmap, but basically we said the most important outcome we want to work on is getting people to respond, project people responding to email faster. We want to get them to show up to meetings. We want to get the teams meeting in person and spending social time with each other. And we want to make sure that there's more face-to-face time early in the projects, okay? So that became our roadmap for the year, okay? Our impact was to increase the Net Promoter Score. The outcomes that we were seeking was this prioritized list. And then we were ready to go take a look at the outputs we were going to create. And at this point, right, we're planning for the next year. We still didn't know what outputs we would be working on in the coming year. But what I want to tell you is that that's actually a good thing, right? Imagine you're doing annual planning, it's November, and you're trying to build a plan for the next year. You don't know what you're going to be working on a year from now. And if you do, you're kidding yourself, right? So leaving this open gives us the ability to focus on the outcomes, that's our roadmap, and experiment our way forward. by capturing our features, not as we will build this, we will build that, we will build the next thing, but as hypotheses. We believe that we can achieve an outcome with this feature, and then we will test our way forward in a continuous agile loop to discover whether we're right or wrong. Okay. So the magic questions then, to come back to that, right? What are the behaviors that create value, right? The things that people do that will cause an increase in net promoter score. Those are the outcomes we're looking for. How do we get people to do more of them, right? Those are the features that we might propose. And how do we know we're right? Those are the tests and the metrics we'll use to guide our progress forward through our roadmap. Okay. So with that, I think those are the stories I want to tell you for today. You've listened to me talk for a long time. It's Zoom. It's hard to listen to somebody talk for a long time. So why don't we go to question and answer? Debbie, Michael, we can do that and chat for a little while.
Yeah, awesome. That was really great, and I loved the visuals. So thank you for that. So Rob, do you want to ask your question? I mean,
it was kind of a joke. I wanted to know how they stopped people from turning left, Josh. I felt it was a cliffhanger.
I'm dying to know.
There's a cliffhanger.
Yeah.
Well, I'm going to write about that in my next book, Rob. You know, honestly, I have no idea how they fixed it. That was from a little bit of local news coverage from a small town in Massachusetts, and yeah, I saw that story and I just thought it was too good. I have no idea how they fixed it.
I'm thinking like crossing guards standing in the road or something like that. You know, like,
yeah, I mean, you know, I think I think that's sort of an interesting question from a product development point of view, is like, okay, now we know that stop signs don't work. What would be our process to sort of, okay, we can brainstorm a bunch of solutions. How would we prototype and test those solutions quickly and easily? And how would we know that they're working, right? And I think I
often beat myself up over the thing that you said, where sometimes there's nothing wrong with the output, except for the thing that's wrong with it is it didn't change the behavior. And I think I get caught up in like, but the thing, I know what, you know, right? So like, I don't know. So that's like, how do you, then what do you do if the stop sign doesn't work? How do you, and the thing is what you said, which is small, fail fast experiments on other outputs.
You know, I think that, so I worked, I don't know if you know, you probably know my colleague, Jono Malinek. Jono's a designer and developer that I worked with some years ago. And Jono, talking about experiments, Jono would say, you know, it's not an experiment if you're not willing to kill the idea, right? And I think a lot of times we get really, really attached to our features and we're like, boy, those stop signs are beautiful, you know? But if you're committed to building stop signs and you're gonna keep them no matter what, then you're not really being agile. You know, you're not really committed to a test and learn process, right? And so I think the thing that we need to do is we need to say like, okay, look, we're gonna make a low investment attempt at this, and if it works, great, we'll really commit to it, and if it's not working, we'll throw it away, right? So I would say that my next experiment, personally, I would look at street furniture, right? And so by street furniture, I mean like, you know, the curbs and things that you could build into the intersection to force a kind of a one-way flow there, right? But, you know, if you don't want to pour concrete, like what could you prototype with street furniture? Well, you could put a barrier there, right? Like a police line barrier, or you could put traffic cones there to direct the flow. You know, yeah. So that would be my next step if that was really my job, right?
Awesome, thank you. So Michael Carlson, do you want to shout out your question? And I know you're on mute, so Michael Kelman, do you want to unmute him, or should I shout it out?
I'm unmuted, I think.
Yeah. All
All
right.
right. Thanks, Josh. This is awesome. One thing that sometimes gets tripped up when talking with folks about this mental model is that sometimes we come up with outcomes, or someone comes up with an outcome that isn't really an outcome. Or sort of how do we help steer people in the right direction if there's like a wrong outcome, or is there a common sort of wrong outcome that you've seen as a good example of a, like, this isn't an outcome, it might seem like one, but it's not?
Can you, what do you mean by like people come up with an outcome that's not an outcome?
So like, for example, you'd be working through and maybe an outcome is actually more of an impact. Are there sort of like, are there frequent examples that you see that come up when you're sort of working with someone and you're coming up with, okay, what are some outcomes we want to drive, and like a common mistaken outcome?
Yeah. I mean, I think one of the probably the hardest thing. Well, okay. I think that the challenges are either that your goal is too big, right? That it's an impact. And so one way, or that your goal is you're setting your goal on a thing, you're on an output, right? So those are two common errors. And the first one is that if it's too big, one of the things you want to ask is this within my scope, right? So if, for example, I wanted a team to increase customer loyalty, right? Like in that Net Promoter Score example, that they're a relatively small organization. They're completely in charge of that service that they deliver, right? I was working with, I think, 6 people on that team, and they were the whole team, right? So they had a lot of control over that. But if, let's say it was a service that was delivered by, 10 teams, you can't make one team out of 10 responsible for customer satisfaction, right? Because you could do something and the other team could blow it up, right? So the first thing is like, is it within my scope, right? And then the second thing is it an observable behavior? So you ask that question, what will people be doing differently when we've succeeded? And if you can't describe it in terms of a concrete behavior, then it's probably not an outcome that you can use, right? So people will be responding to email within 24 hours, right? That's an observable outcome. If you say something like, well, people mostly respond to email, that's like, well, what does that mean? It's too vague, but it's not specific enough. It's not that we could disagree on what mostly respond to email means. So it should be observable and specific and concrete, and it should be expressed in terms of behavior.
That's really interesting. Yeah, my head's spinning because I have so many real world examples here that I say it's funny, like I'm having conversations and I'm going, oh, what's missing here? And then the things that you're teaching us today are the answer to what's missing here. Oh, okay, I get it. So what do you do when someone there's a team of people that are all bought into outputs, outcomes, and impact, and are working with another group of people that may be a stakeholder or a decision maker that is just simply not aligned? How do you inch kind of the naysayers along? And I know it's a funny question. Many of us on this call have been preaching or learning Agile for the last 20 years. So I'm assuming the difference is not that different from how we get people to understand Agile for those that are interested, but I might be wrong. Maybe it's completely different. So yeah, how do you inch along the folks that aren't on board?
Can I build on that? Can I build on that too, Debbie? I was thinking something similar, which is that I feel like like a mindset shift required in those leaders who have been so focused on output. And now we're saying no, focus on outcomes. You tell us what outcomes you'd like to achieve, and then leave us to figure out the how. And it requires a shift in those who are so used to directing teams and asking teams to perform certain activities, right? Like, does that build on the point that you were making, Debbie, that
Yes,
we have to help them shift their mindsets in a way?
absolutely.
So I think it's really, in my experience, it's very, there are a lot of reasons why leaders might be working at kind of very devoted to kind of output focused leadership, right? Sometimes it's that there's actually a contract, right? Contract that says, I've signed up as a leader. I've signed up to deliver feature X by date Y, right? And that could be a formal contract, right? Like if you're in working in an agency or a services business, or it can be an informal contract, like a kind of something inside an organization where you've made a promise to someone else in the organization. And that promise is based on delivering that feature, right? And so that's kind of one scenario. And that's a hard scenario to work around, right? If there's a contractual commitment to the output. And then there's sort of another scenario, which is this sort of a trust issue, right? Which is like, I'm a leader who I have to tell my people what to do or they won't do it, right? I don't believe they can figure this out. Right? And then the third one is it's almost like the child who does not know how to ask, for those of you familiar with the 4 questions, right? It's like they want an outcome, right? But like actually getting to an outcome is hard, right? It's like it's easy to say, and it's easy for me to put this PowerPoint up, but it actually takes hard collaborative work between the team and the middle management and the senior management level to have that conversation about setting the appropriate goals. And it's not something that an executive can do by herself, or a middle manager can do by themselves, or a team can do by themselves. It's a collaborative conversation, and we're not used to having those, right? We're used to kind of this more of a top-down kind of you do that, So they're different scenarios, and I think you have to treat them as separate problems.
Yeah, while we were talking, Michael Kelman wrote in the chat, and I'm sure everyone can see it, but I thought it was really important. And people are focused on delivering specific features that they forget the ultimate purpose of the feature.
Yeah.
And I'll just add to that. I think for me, this feels harder now that I can't whiteboard with someone in the same room.
Yeah.
Right. It just feels harder now than it did 3 months ago.
It's, the tools that I've found are useful to do this are, they're big visual tools. They are kind of the service journey mapping, or if you're familiar with the impact mapping, it's a very nice book by Gojko Adjik, I think is how he says his name, called Impact Mapping. By the way, his language and my language contradict one another, but conceptually it's the same thing. And so you can get that book and figure out whether you want to use his words or my words, but they're very compatible. But anyway, it's this mapping process. We've been teaching it for the last few months. Jeff and I teach a class. Jeff Gothelf and I teach a class in these methods. And we've been teaching it online to distributed workforces. And we use Miro, and we use Mural. And you can do it in those tools. And teams can do it in those tools. But yeah, it's, I'd rather stand in front of a big wall and do it on a whiteboard.
Yeah, I'm kind of envisioning this is a total tangent and you don't have to respond to it, but I'm kind of envisioning like once tech teams in urban areas start to trickle back into the office, it's going to be prioritizing these types of collaborative. Okay, three of us are going to go in and we're gonna collaborate and whiteboard this session, and then and then we're going to go home. So, because I think that's the most important, thing is the tools that will get us by for however long in the next 6-12 months we need them to. But yeah, it's just complicated. All right, so there's another question, and so Michael, do you want to?
Yeah, sure. Josh, thank you for this. It's fascinating. I just wanted to bring you back. When you started the talk, you said that outcomes over outputs is helpful, with your clients and professionally, and also with your own personal goals. I was wondering if you had any examples of how one could use this thinking or this methodology for setting personal goals.
Yeah, I mean, I think I think that it's when we think about kind of our personal goals, it's kind of, I don't know, maybe this is an overstatement, but I think a lot of us kind of imagine some end state, like I'll have lost 15 pounds. That's kind of the goal, right? I'll have lost 15 pounds, right? Or I'll be happy or whatever. But I think actually those things are the result of what we do, right? So it's like, okay, when I'm eating better, right? What will I be doing differently? Right. And I was like, oh, you know what? Instead of every time my Apple Watch reminds me to stand, I won't go to the kitchen and get a bag of chips. Right. I will go, do 10 push-ups or whatever, right? Like, what is the behavior change that I'm trying to create? And so I think that this process can be used, or this framework can be used that way. That sort of thinking about what I will be doing differently. I know it's very much changed my thinking. I set a goal for myself last year that I would write in my journal every day, right? And so then I said, okay, well, what does that look like when I'm writing in my journal every day? Well, it means that every night when I get in bed, I'll spend a few minutes before I do anything else writing in my journal, right? And so that was the behavior change I tried to cultivate. And then what I discovered was, actually, that's a really terrible time to do that because I'm really too tired to write, So I had to reformulate that behavior. What's the behavior that's going to get me to my ultimate goal? And I had to change that and say, okay, actually, I'm going to start my day with journaling, So maybe that helps and tells you a little bit about my personal struggle as well.
And that's interesting because I think often, I will, rather than ask what behavior can I change, I'll just throw the entire goal out the window, which is a mistake. Sometimes, it's not that you want to throw good money after bad sort of thing, but I think that, it's a good kind of call out to don't necessarily throw out the entire goal, because the first change in behavior that you tried was obviously not ideal.
Well, I think, and I think that's an interesting point about how all of this connects to strategy, because ultimately, your goal is an expression of some kind of strategy, right? This is where I'm trying to get, right? Whatever that thing is, right? And so what's wrong? Is the strategy wrong, or is the approach to achieving the strategy, wrong?
That's a really hard question.
It is a hard question. That's our next webinar.
Yeah.
And focus on the measurements, right? You have to understand where you're trying to get to measure successfully. You got to then remember to measure to determine whether the behavior you change is actually the right behavior, right? It doesn't mean that the whole endeavor is doomed. It just means you might have taken the wrong approach the first time out.
Right. And I think that goes back to sort of why I think it's like all of this is really kind of it's so tightly integrated with the all of the key agile concepts, right? Which is that we're trying to navigate through uncertainty, right? And so we've got a proposal, and we say we think we can make the intersection safer if we change driver behavior. And we think we can change driver behavior by putting up street signs, right? But all of these ifs are just kind of hypotheses to be tested, you know? And to your point, Michael, we need to understand, like, where does the logic break down, right? You know, kind of at what point is our what point in that logical chain is our hypothesis failing?
Right. And I think, I mean, why this is so, where we'll wrap up this talk by saying that this couldn't be more timely, because people built businesses and goals and strategies and teams around things that they knew to be true. And now we're all saying, well, are those things still true? And even if they are true today, what will the world look like in 3, 6, and 12 months from now? And so people are, you know, in all industries, kind of frantically trying to figure out where to spend their energy on: outputs, outcomes, or impacts, because
right,
kind of all up for grabs right now, right? And so, so with that, I will say that I think the change in behavior that we seek is that everyone needs to go buy this book. I mean, I don't see what other outcome can.
That's pretty much that's the one, right? Exactly.
That's it. That's all we need to do. No, I say that I say that jokingly, but I will say that the book is a short read. It's it has a lot of this stuff in there. It's on Amazon, so check it out if you desire. Now, what I will do is, and Josh shared the link right here. So what I'm gonna in the chat. So what I'm gonna do real quickly right now is I'm going to end by sharing my screen. And as promised, if you want to get in touch with Josh, you can reach him at josh@senseandrespondpress.com. If you want to reach Stride or myself, you can email me at debbie@stridenyc.com. And then on June 18th, we have the CEO of Meetup, David Siegel. David Siegel, I read pivoting and said Siegel, so there it is. Pivoting when your business model gets upended, which is, I have to imagine, one of the most fascinating talks about how to know when you should change impact, outputs, or outcomes. So I'm very much, Meetup has had a rough couple months, and they have really pivoted and re-looked at everything. So I'm very much looking forward to that talk. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining. Have a great rest of your day, and we will send this recording out as soon as it's available in the next few days. So thank you, Josh. This was a wonderful, wonderful talk. I appreciate your time.
Thanks so much for having me. Great to see you all. Thanks for hanging out.
Take care, everyone.
Bye.